Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com, on Roku, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I'm going to read a post that a YouTuber left for me in response to the last video before I give you my opinion on the Elite 8 in boxing, the top 8 fighters pound for pound, right? It'll help you figure out my opinion and where people place me here online. This is a comment left to my last video. It's a post-fight video on Joseph Parker's victory over Bowie Tupu. By the way, I predicted that that fight would end by KO. The fight ended by KO. Nonetheless, I got this comment. Watch the fight properly, Richard, before giving a very biased view on Parker. Tupu was being hit with jabs, followed by a very well-executed uppercut just before his right punch to Tupu's head put him down face first on the canvas. Parker was counterpunching as he was going backwards at a fast pace. Parker's speed was too much for Tupu. If there would be a rematch, you would get the same outcome. Tupu's only chance was to brawl with Parker, but the skill set of Parker was too much for a very limited Bowie Tupu. Your view is very one-sided and quite pathetic. Okay, great. In line with my pathetic views, let me continue and boldly double down and tell you where I stand on the Elite 8. First, let me say this too. Right? I'm going to eliminate some people. Viewers here on YouTube and commenting on earlier pound for pound lists have correctly made the point, and you're right, I was wrong, that really the pound for pound list should exclude heavyweights. Right? Understand the pound for pound list historically was made for Sugar Ray Robinson because the heavyweight division got so much glamour. Right? We always know who the heavyweight champion is. As I like to say myself, there's the heavyweight champ, and then there's everyone else. Well, this is a device for us to look at everyone else. So while you have some heavyweights who I consider to be immensely talented, right, finished products, Vladimir Klitschko, Tyson Fury, who I think beats Vladimir Klitschko, Alexander Povetkin, right? Notice I did not name Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, or Deontay Wilder. You know, only God can judge me. But put it this way, I'm not going to put any heavyweights on this Elite 8 list. Also, people know that I represented Andre Ward in a proceeding before the California State Athletic Commission. Right? Obviously, I've spoken to Andre. I'm not going to include Andre Ward on the list because I want to avoid any appearance of bias. Just understand, I think the world of Andre Ward, but to avoid any appearance of bias whatsoever, I'm not going to consider Andre Ward for the list. So, right, keep in mind, let's put this in perspective. This is a list post-Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, Mayweather right now is the pound-for-pound king of boxing. He has earned it, right? When it comes to viewing him in history, if we just look at the most elite sugars, so I'm going to, you know, put it this way, with a lot of respect toward Sugar Ramos, Hall of Famer, Sugar Seals, Olympic gold medalist, Sugar Shane Mosley, certainly a future Hall of Famer, I'm going to focus on Sugar Ray Leonard and Sugar Ray Robinson. Now, it's clear to me Mayweather can't match Leonard in charisma, nor can he match Robinson in charisma. He can't match Leonard in volume, nor can he match Robinson in volume. But understand what a legendary fighter this is. Neither Ray Leonard nor Ray Robinson can match Money Floyd Mayweather defensively. Right? Mayweather is a different level over both defensively. Right? Look at the CompuBox numbers. Understand, Mayweather's not hype. He's reality. Right? There's no fighter out there who has a wider gap between his accuracy and his opponent's accuracy than Floyd Mayweather. He really is a fighter who belongs on the short list of best ever. Right? Now, we're going to have different things we look at. As I like to say in my household, right? My dad was a Joe Louis man, and, I understand an argument can be made for Joe. Right? As we look at different things, we're going to have different guys we pick as the best ever, as TBE. Right? But just understand, Floyd Mayweather belongs on that list as you're considering, right? A Ray Leonard, a Ray Robinson, a prime Roy Jones Jr., Pernell Whitaker, right? Joe Louis, Ali, right? As you're going, Rocky Marciano, Archie Moore, right? As you're going through your list, just understand that Mayweather's defense is off the page. Mayweather's accuracy really is off the page. Understand, Mayweather against world-class competition, typically lands over 50% of his power punches. Understand, too, that while some greats have clear holes in their game, right, Ali rarely went to the body. Joe Louis didn't have the best hand speed. There are fights where Rocky Marciano is dominated for stretches of the fight. The first Jersey Joe Walcott fight. Right? You don't have any of that with Floyd Mayweather. Understand, Mayweather is a lethal body puncher. Understand, Mayweather is a great athlete with excellent foot speed when he wants to have foot speed. Right? Understand, Mayweather's fights typically are one-sided on the scorecards. Even his fight against Genaro Hernandez, a pretty good champion. And keep in mind, Mayweather was in his early 20s. Right? What was a young kid like this doing in the ring with Hernandez, many of us thought? Mayweather's pulling away from that fight when Hernandez's brother pulls the plug. That's how dramatic it was. Right? That's how Mayweather picks up his title. Right? So understand, Mayweather really is the king, pound for pound wise. There's always going to be some new person on the horizon. We always like the latest model car. Right? The 2016 model, we say, hey, this is better than the 2015 model. But there's a certain timelessness to Floyd Mayweather in the ring. Now, Mayweather has one fight left. I quite frankly think Mayweather might linger. Why? Because I've seen other fighters linger, right? Isn't David Haye talking about still fighting? I remember when Bernard Hopkins promised us that his fight against Tarver was going to be his last fight. That was several fights ago, right? I'm telling you, I remember Ali walking away from the sport after Leon Spinks only to show up against Larry Holmes. Right? Larry Holmes walked away. Next thing you knew, Larry was back in the ring with Mike Tyson. Right? This is boxing. Guys come back. Right? Guys linger. Right? Ray Leonard one time did a Hector Camacho fight, was so offended by what Camacho had to say to him. Right? This is Ray as the commentator. That Leonard, of course, ends up back in the ring against Camacho. Right? Maybe Floyd has left the building or is leaving the building. Maybe he's not. But assuming that Mayweather is true to his word and leaves the sport after his next fight, at least as a fighter, right? Let's talk about the Elite Eight. And I know I'm going to upset a lot of people. I always do. You just heard the Joseph Parker remark from a boxing fan. Okay, great. On my Elite Eight list, I'm going to put current light heavyweight champion Sergey Kovalev. Right? Now, let me say this. There's a great opportunity for young fighters out there. Right? The guys I'm going to name, really none of them are 25 or younger. Most of these guys are in their 30s. right? Most of them, right? And so really there's a lost generation out there. Guys like Mayweather picked up titles in their early 20s. I don't know why we don't see more of that today. I don't know why dominant fighters tend to be older today. Well, Kovalev's 32. Understand he has one of the masters of jabs in his corner, Don Turner. Look up Don Turner's history online. He's worked with many guys in improving their jabs. Kovalev, who's learning the sport, and as he's learning the sport, in my opinion, is a top pound-for-pound fighter, has picked up a devastating jab to go with one of the biggest punches in the sport of boxing. And, of course, his main trainer is John David Jackson, who's a master at angles, right? He has guys coming in, throwing volume. In other words, his fighters aren't bashful. They're throwing punches, but yet they're doing so with their heads tucked and stuff where you can't hit them while they're hitting you. Understand the work Kovalev has put together. He's beaten Pascal. He's beaten Hopkins. He's beaten Campillo. He's beaten Cleverly. He's an unbeaten fighter. Think about it. The next fighter on my list is Chocolatito, Roman Gonzalez. He's the flyweight champion. Now, he's 28. Right? I believe he might be the youngest guy on my list. Right? This guy is dangerous. He has a gift Mayweather has, where the house is on fire. Right? People need to think clearly. There's smoke everywhere. There's debris falling down from the ceiling. And some people are just calm. You know, the person you turn to in moments like that. He's the person saying, hey, we have a fire escape over here. He's the person talking calmly. He's like Dean Smith, the former North Carolina coach, with 2 minutes left in a game as he calls a timeout. He's talking calmly. He's not fazed, right? No matter how belligerent his opponent is. Roman Gonzalez is calm, right? He's calm. Two-handed. Like Golovkin, he's a cautious stalker. In other words, he's a master at cutting off the ring, but yet he never looks like he's in a hurry. Understand how special this guy is. We're talking about Mayweather going for 49-0. Roman Gonzalez is 43-0. Roman Gonzalez's KO ratio is 86%. Think about it. It's about 30% higher than Floyd Mayweather's, right? Understand, Gonzalez fights end in KOs. I believe his last 9 fights have ended by KO. I hope you give him a look. Another guy on the pound-for-pound list, in my opinion, and I've been talking this guy up because this guy, in my opinion, right now is a Hall of Famer, is Timothy Bradley. Now, he's 31, right? His record is 32-1-1. The draw we know is a joke. That's a Diego Chavez draw that most ringsiders thought Bradley won clearly. The only loss is the rematch to Manny Pacquiao, a man he beat earlier. He's a master inside. At 5'6", he can get underneath you. He knows how to fight low. Now, let's forget about Pacquiao for a moment. Just think about the other guys he's beaten. He beat Marquez. He took Lamont Peterson's unbeaten record. He took Devin Alexander's unbeaten record. He beat Ruslan Provodnikov. He beat Joel Casamayor. If you remember how good Kendall Holt was, you know it's a feather in his cap that he beat Kendall Holt. He went to the UK and beat Junior Witter. He beat Miguel Vasquez. Timothy Bradley belongs on this list. Quite frankly, if he retired today with this resume, I think he's in the Hall of Fame, right? Let me say, too, he took Jesse Vargas's O, although I do agree with Vargas that result should be nullified because that was supposed to be a 12-round fight, not an 11 and 2/3 round fight, right? The referee made a mistake there. Okay, another guy who belongs on the list, and hey, it's my list. I'm going to put some guys on who I think are great fighters, who the public might disagree with. That's how I roll here. That's how I'm still going to roll here. He's 29 years old. He's a super middleweight champion. He is James DeGale, in my opinion, at the chessboard, in other words, in the pocket. I don't believe this guy has any peers. I believe he is that good. He is simply great at changing punch angles while maintaining his balance and power. Right? He's spectacular at it. He's ambidextrous. They list him as a southpaw. Quite frankly, he's adept fighting out of an orthodox stance. This guy is much better than advertised. He is aware in the ring. In other words, he's fighting Andre Durrell in Boston in front of an American crowd, and he knew the score in his head entering the later rounds. He knew exactly what he had to do to step on the gas in that 12th round. Right? He's excellent at pacing himself. He's excellent at using the entire ring. Now, like Mayweather, for some reason, he's unloved. Right? He's a gold medalist fighting in front of his home country, and for some reason, people were cheering his opponent, George Groves. Right? He's not a loved individual. I believe he knows it. So in fights, he leaves little doubt. Right? I believe before, he tried to please the crowd. Now he's in a rear zone where he understands the crowd can't be pleased. So now he's just a craftsman making his mark. Right? Drawing paintings that generations later people will come back and look at and say, damn. Right? He's like Vincent van Gogh, quite frankly. Right? James DeGale is on my list. Another guy who's on my list, and I'll just preface it. His trainer saw him and thought Julio Cesar Chavez. Right? So the trainer has actively worked on having this guy duplicate the great Julio Cesar Chavez's style. Right? The trainer is Abel Sanchez. The fighter is Gennady Golovkin. He's 33-0. He's the middleweight champ. He has a 91% KO ratio. More importantly, he is rarely in the pocket. Look at his fights. He likes to be across the street. Right? He's coming up on you from across the street. He rarely is in the pocket. He's rarely in front of you until he's throwing power shots. In other words, this is the guy who, you're sitting in your living room, suddenly the door blows off and he's in wrecking havoc. He's a cautious stalker. He easily avoids jabs because he's too far away. But yet when he comes in, his punching power is such that guys wilt. Right? And when he comes in, he'll throw punches and hit you in weird places. Right? He's a planned attacker. He's organized. Right? There's a method to the madness. And understand, Abel Sanchez, by reputation, is a very hard guy to get along with when you're a fighter. Right? He trains fighters out in the wilderness, someplace called Big Bear. Right? Away from all the action. He expects you to be willing to train even when you have a newborn baby. Right? Even when the calendar says things like Easter and Christmas. Right? But yet Golovkin is with him. These two guys are on a mission to establish a standard. Right? Just be aware of the fact, though, that Golovkin is 33 years old. Right? Another guy who, to me, is part of my pound-for-pound list. Right? And I'm not even going to count to 10 on this. I believe I have 8 fighters listed. Is a WBO super lightweight champion. If this guy fought Floyd Mayweather tomorrow, I wouldn't take Mayweather in the fight. Right? I'm not sure what I'd do. The fight might be unbettable for me. Depending on the odds, I'd do an odds play. I'd take the guy where I'm getting favorable odds. This guy's 26-0. He has a 69% KO ratio. He hits much harder than people think. Right? He is Terence Crawford. He is 27 years old. I guess I was wrong. He's 27. Probably the youngest guy on my list. Right? This guy's the same height as Mayweather. I believe Mayweather would never fight this guy because it's one thing to lose to a guy who has losses, who's had bad moments in the ring. Then as we think back, we'll say, you know what, Floyd was better than X, fill in the blank, right? Amir Khan, whoever. But styles make fights. This young guy beat Floyd, even though this young guy lost to other guys. But I believe an unbeaten fighter, like a Terence Crawford, would call into question Mayweather's entire legacy. Right? Understand, if you lose to an unbeaten guy, who then goes on to stay unbeaten for several years, fans will then tend to put your conqueror over you. Now, Crawford was at 135 where he dominated. He's just arrived at 140, and of course, he's already champion at 140. Right? I'm telling you that Crawford, 5'8", could easily be fighting guys at 147. I don't believe personally Crawford against Robert the Ghost Guerrero is competitive, because Crawford has a gift that I believe very few have. Right? Tyson Fury has it. Where Crawford is seamless from distance in fighting righty or lefty. And unlike James DeGale, who's great up close with it, Crawford can throw a right jab as good as he throws a left jab. In other words, Crawford doesn't even have to get to the chessboard. That would throw off an angles guy like a Floyd Mayweather. How do you set up that lead left hook if the other guy can just come in southpaw? Think about it. And still be as good as he is righty. Right? In terms of skills, Crawford is at the top, let's say 2% of the profession. Right? He's a master at the chessboard. When he gets inside against a guy like Ricky Burns, he's hanging with Ricky Burns, isn't he? In fact, he's better than Ricky Burns inside. When he's outside, he's a master. Right? You saw the Yorkis-Gamboa fight. He didn't even really have to engage Gamboa that much. Right? From the outside, he was able to neutralize what Gamboa was doing while peppering Gamboa with whatever he wanted. Right? Be wary of Terence Crawford. I personally believe the guy should just jump to welterweight. I think he'd be dominant. Let me name the last two guys I have on my list. The first is a guy I believe can beat his countryman Amir Khan today. And that's Kell Brook. Understand how good Kell Brook is. He's 35-0. He has a 69% KO ratio. He's 29 years old. Now I have to say bluntly, right? You know the way I am. I don't really care what a guy does outside the ring. As long as he's in shape and ready to fight and can make weight and can be great in the ring. But I don't buy the Kell Brook machete story. I don't know what's really going on with Kell Brook outside the ring, but I get the feeling there's a gap between Kell Brook's public life and Kell Brook's private life. We'll just put it that way diplomatically. But I'll say this. This is a young lion who kills angles. This is another guy who would give Floyd all he can handle. He kills angles. He has rear power. He can follow you around the ring. If you jump in on him, as Sean Porter found out, he can tie you up when you get inside. He's a better fighter than he was the first time he fought Carson Jones. Now, he's fought guys who I think more highly of than the public does. Right? He's fought guys who I think personally are highly skilled. Right? The public disagrees with me, but okay, whatever. And he's destroyed them in a way that it's been eye-opening to me. I'm still a fan of Jojo Dan. If you're a gambler, you have to keep track of this guy. I believe he's much better than advertised. I'm a fan of Frankie Gavin. Same thing. I believe Gavin's much better than advertised. Both of these guys seem stunned by the suddenness of Kell Brook. Right? Kell Brook is so sudden, he makes it look easy. Right? Now here again, I know Kell Brook rules the roost at welter, but I believe with this guy's hand speed and this guy's punching power, I'd love to see him jump to 154. Right? Kell Brook's the kind of guy, quite frankly, who should be calling out heavier fighters, who he knows he's not going to gain weight to fight. I think Kell Brook at around 147 beats Canelo at 160 because Kell Brook is just too fast. Speed kills. I don't know how Canelo would even be able to land shots on Kell Brook. Right? I think that fight's a mismatch. Right? Understand, the right way to do fights like that is how they used to do it in the old days. You don't have to gain weight because we know it's tough to gain weight to 160 and then have to lose the weight back down to fight at 147. Rather, what Kell Brook should do is what Ray Robinson did before he fought Joey Maxim. Just stay around the same weight. Right? Understand that you have punching power. You have hand speed. Right? Don't do what Roy Jones did to fight John Ruiz. Gain weight and then never be the same fighter. I think guys like Kell Brook who have accuracy, who have punching power, and who have hand speed and foot speed, even post machete. Right? I think a guy like this has a more interesting future than just the welterweight division. He should think about it. Keep in mind, he can call out guys and fight them at 154, right, while keeping his belt at 147. If you want to see an example of this, look at Floyd Mayweather. Right? Mayweather weighed something like 150 when he took out Oscar De La Hoya, who weighed whatever Oscar weighed, for the 154-pound title. Finally, the last guy I'm going to name, and he's a 34-year-old. When he's on his game, he is the best defensive fighter in boxing. He's 15-0. He's 5'4", and he could get low. He has been getting caught of late. I believe Father Time is catching up to him. Maybe his shelf life is expiring. But Guillermo Rigondeaux, or Rigondeaux, however you want to pronounce it, the super bantamweight champion, belongs on any pound-for-pound list. Right? Some of the best work done in the last few years was the work he did against Nonito Donaire, another damn good fighter. Right? When Donaire was still Donaire. Right? If you're thinking about great defense, and this is a guy who can open up when he needs to, then I believe unbeaten Guillermo Rigondeaux belongs on the list. So those are the guys I have named. Let's talk about briefly some of the guys I haven't named. And let me say this. Being on this list doesn't mean you're bulletproof. As I said earlier, I believe based on styles, I'd take Leo Santa Cruz over Rigondeaux. Right? I would. I think Santa Cruz is younger and fresher. Keep in mind, though, I'm not sure if I'm taking Santa Cruz in his next fight against Abner Maris, because the styles are a little bit different. Now, Danny Garcia, I'll concede, is a Hall of Famer. There's no way to look at this guy's record and reach any other conclusion. It's just that, to me, Danny Garcia, who did look good against Paulie Malignaggi, and I'll do a separate video, especially his jabs to Malignaggi's body. right? Danny Garcia isn't as complicated to me, style-wise, as these guys are. There have been Danny Garcia fights, the second half of the Lamont Peterson fight, where quite frankly, Danny has been completely outboxed. I don't have him on this list. Nicholas Walters. You know what? I'm Jamaican, right? Walters is a personal favorite of mine. You can imagine I have family members who love Nicholas Walters, right? But Walters strikes me as a bit of a size guy, doesn't he? He seems to be squeezing himself into lower weights. He seems to have outsized punching power because he's a big man for his division, right? He missed the cut on my list because I don't consider any of the guys I've put on this list to be really more size guys, right? Walters, in fact, missed weight for his last fight. I believe that's how he lost his title. Vasyl Lomachenko. You know what? He lost to Orlando Salido. Let's be real here. He lost to Salido. He hasn't had that many pro fights. His punching power remains an open question for me. He's looked good, but he hasn't had that many fights, right? In my opinion, he didn't make the cut for my list. Maybe down the road, but not right now, right? So, let me hear from you. If there are guys you think I have excluded, and I know there's some great fighters out there, Erislandy Lara, Keith Thurman, right? Bunch of guys, right? Mikey Garcia. Hey, Mikey has some greatness. I'd just like to see Mikey fight more, right? If there are guys you think I'm overlooking, I hope you leave them in the comment section to this video. And if you think my analysis is way off, as the comment I read earlier suggested, then feel free to go ahead and leave that criticism in the comment section to this video. Trust me, it won't be the first bit of criticism I've received here online. All right. Thanks for stopping by.